Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy some malicious compliance. Show them all your documents. They will see you deserve no better. Okay, I will show all my documents. Hi, this is my first post here about a thing which happened half a decade ago, but recent experience made me remember it vividly. I hope you enjoy my story. To give context, I live in Europe in a non-Anglophone country. I have always been a language nerd, and since my parents' divorce, English and everything in it, music, movies, internet, was my escape. So I was fluent before most of my classmates and got my CPE, Certificate of Proficiency in English, the highest certificate from the Cambridge Council, at 18. In my country, high schools are basically undergrad college and are finished between the age of 19 and 20. And a problem with almost all public schools is that they have terrible language teachers, most of them being former Russian teachers with minimal English or any other language education. Also, as my country is small and nobody could reasonably expect to use our language abroad, we put a huge emphasis on language studies at all levels of education. And it is often the thing which schools boast about to become more prestigious. So, enough context. From early on, my last high school English teacher and I kicked it off to a bad start. The first test she gave us came back all red because of words which are not in the textbook. The terrible teacher, TT for short, would do this to me for the full final 2 years. She would take my essays and tests and cross out any word, phrase or structure which was not in the textbook we were using. I maintained that I will not go as far as to learn the textbook vocabulary by heart, just to remember which synonyms I was allowed to use, just because of the terrible teacher's antics. I have managed to keep an A for 3 terms because there was nothing she could mark down on my grammar. The final term, however, terrible teacher learned that I wished to go to the university to do Anglophone studies, a specialisation her daughter had failed to be accepted for. She told me that as an explanation why I cannot ever hope to be accepted at the start of that term, and which, among a dozen other things, required good or even perfect marks from high school language lessons and accepted by only 5% of applicants. The terrible teacher was set to make me fail. She started giving me the stupidest assignments and extra tests for misbehaving in class, being finished early and silently staring at a wall, which required me to mark the exact position of Disneyland on this A4 blind map of USA. Exact quote I still remember after all those years. And more of the same stuff. You could tell she was so satisfied by me failing these tests. She would have a grin on her face each time handing out the results. By this time, I have been representing the school in Language Olympics for both English and Spanish. She had no idea, because it was organised by another language teacher. And even though the principal made it into a big deal, terrible teacher was plainly uninterested. I have placed 3rd in the capital city district in Spanish and 6th nationwide in English. Not listing this to brag, okay, maybe a bit, but to use it later. By the end of the term, she got my mark down to a C-. Mind you, the grammar was still A's, but her blind maps of tourist attractions had taken their toll. I went to her to reason with her, but her reaction was, "If you think a different teacher would propose a different mark, take all of your documents and go to one of my colleagues. But I believe it is clear to anyone that you do not deserve any better." So, I did. I took all my documents. The blind maps, the grammar tests, and then a year-old PCE certificate and my 6th place diploma. I went to the teacher who organised the competitions and explained my situation. She was furious. She took this to the principal, and even though I was waiting outside, I could hear him yell at the terrible teacher. "You are trying to fail the student who is representing us at the national level of competitions?" It also turned out that with the CPE I had, by that time, a higher level of English education than TT had. I got my A. I got to the uni and I love it there. I also started my own tiny language school where, among of course teaching the language to whoever is interested, I help kids whose language teachers are incompetent and/or power-hungry morons. The impulse for me to write this was walking by the high school last week and meeting with the terrible teacher. She acted like we have always been best buddies. A couple of my students are her students as well, so she knows about me. She hugged me in front of the high school kids present and exclaimed that I got where I was thanks to working hard in her lessons. I'm still angry I did not get the courage to tell her off there and then. That entire story was just screaming jealousy. It was quite obvious that teacher was just jealous that the student knew more English than them. You want me to stick to 40 hours a week with absolutely no overtime? Are you sure? I work for a major Silicon Valley tech corporation. They are big. You have heard of them, and you probably have some of their hardware in your computer right now. I am involved in creative marketing. We support the top level officers in the company, and I have been on the road many times developing presentation materials for people that you have heard of. I have been working there 3 years, but they have not converted me from contract into a full-time employee. In that time, the stock has also soared, and I could have made quite a bit of money, but they refused to bring me on board because they said, "You are already here, and we are focusing manpower dollars on people who are not in the door yet." They passed me over several times so that they could bring in people from the outside. No worries, I understand. I can remain hourly as long as they want. At my rate, I bring in a decent amount of money, and I bring in an absurd amount of money when overtime is involved. And overtime is involved often, as these events require an incredible amount of work, and I am the only guy here that does what I do. Now for the story. In the past, when we have large events, I have worked upwards of 80 hours per week. That's a lot of extra money. In fact, when they put me on the road, they need to pay me my hourly rate plus overtime for travel time. So, a 12-hour flight is 8 hours of pay and 4 hours of overtime, just to sit on the plane. Naturally, the higher-ups, VP level and execs, in the company had a heart attack after a couple of these events went by, and I raked in upwards of $10,000 in 1 week. Totally understandable, but they could have avoided all of this if they just hired me. Oh well. They came down hard on the 2 or 3 people that are above me in the hierarchy. Naturally, they freaked out as well. I was told, for our most recent show, I was to not work more than 40 hours a week. No exceptions. No overtime and no budgetary overruns. I replied, "No problem, I will do as much of the work as I can in my 40 hours. I even said it with an honest smile. And I worked my butt off 40 hours every week. No more, no less. The 4 weeks leading up to the show were insane for everyone but me. All of my salaried co-workers were spending vast amounts of overtime and not getting paid for it. Nights and weekends were the standard, and I just went home every day at 5 o'clock and told them that I wish I could help. Our immediate team totally understood, and they thought it was great the way I was handling everything. We have a pretty good team for the most part. In the last week before the show, I was told that I needed to complete a pretty large amount of work. I told them that this amount of work is unachievable in 40 hours, and they had a choice to either bring someone else in to help me or pay me for the hours I would need to spend to complete it. I don't work for free. Because the department is so poorly run, many contractors have decided to no longer work with us. It was damn near impossible for them to find anyone to come in and help me. So it really came down to this. My bosses could please the top level management by allowing me to get the work done, or explain to them why they couldn't deliver. I think you can see where this is going. I worked 119 hours that week. That was 40 hours of regular, 40 hours of overtime, and 39 hours of double overtime. That came to a grand total of somewhere around $17,000 for 1 week of work, before taxes. It was glorious, but it was also extremely exhausting. Although, I must admit, cramming all that work into 1 week was much better than spreading it out and sweating for a full month. At the end of the show, I was praised personally by the CEO for all the great work that I did. They are still freakish about overtime, but they realize that they need to either hire me or continue to pay my overtime rates. Personally, I don't care which one they choose. Stock is worthless to me at the price it is right now. I have since told them that if they bring me on board as a salaried employee, I will demand $180,000 a year. They said, "That's outrageous. Why would we ever pay you that much?" And I said, "You've been paying me that much for 3 years now. That's my price. If you'd like to talk, I sit right over there." I'm still hourly, but I'm sitting on a beach in Belize, sipping some awesome rum and smoking a Cuban cigar as I write this. I might be wrong with this, so correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but I'm pretty sure if they take him on as an employee, they have to pay like his health insurance, and then unemployment stuff, and loads of other extra costs, so it's probably actually cheaper for them to actually just pay him $180,000 as a contractor, but again, I might be wrong, so correct me if I am. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like, and if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.